All right, welcome back, everybody. Back with another quick little news of the day video here for you guys, keeping you guys up to date with everything that's been going on in the Dota 2 Pro circuit as per usual. This video is going to be consisting a lot of Southeast Asia, which in comparison to some other regions has actually been like the most active throughout the post-EI 11 roster shuffling period. We've seen with other regions a lot of teams dissolving and players leaving teams and some minor movements here and there, but very few regions have really had players joining teams or some new teams forming, stuff like that. Southeast Asia has been the first region to have that major shift, and we are starting to get a look at what some of these rosters are going to look like heading into next season, which is very, very exciting. But of course, before we get into it, if you've noticed that I've missed anything on this board or in prior boards, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I will say that I will be talking about more than what is on this board because, as you can see, this board is actually a few days old. I was planning to record this a few days ago, but I ended up getting sick, so I've added on a few extra stories. You'll see them at the end of the video, so if those are the ones that you're going to be letting me know about in the comments, maybe just make sure they aren't overlapping. And of course, if you want to check out any of the things that I talk about in this video, they are all linked in the description down below as per usual, so you can check them out for yourself, as well as the link to our Discord server. And of course, if you enjoy my content, if you don't want to miss any more news of the day updates, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. I'll be trying to get back to some more regular uploads as I am starting to recover a little bit more. But yeah, okay, let's get into it. So Southeast Asia, of course, new organization coming into the upper division of Southeast Asia. They are going to be buying in that slot from RSG. If I'm not mistaken, that's going to be Blacklist. That is going to be the team that they're going to be going with. And they have a brand new roster that they have thrown together, which is looking pretty competitive right out of the bat. I'm really curious to see how things end up shaking out in Southeast Asia because already there's a lot of rosters that look pretty scary. Some rosters have more or less been the same from last year and previous years, and some of them have had complete shakeups. This is one that I'm very excited to see how it ends up playing out. So, kicking things off, we have Raven coming in from Fnatic to play position 1. We have Carl and Cuckoo from T1. Who, of course, that team dissolved their roster very recently as well. They're going to be coming in to play position 2 and 3. They should be familiar with one another. Tim's coming in to play position 4, an absolutely huge name to be bringing onto your brand new roster, and AU from Polaris to fill out that position 5 slot. Overall, I think this is fantastic. This is a great first roster, and again, I don't think you could have really asked for much more. Let's see how they end up doing. I have a lot of faith in this roster. I think they can do very, very well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this roster. Do you think they're going to end up being a top 3 team? Do you think they could be a little disappointing? Do you think they end up getting relegated in the first tour? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. And where do you think they place amongst the other teams in Southeast Asia? I think I'm going to be doing a preview for Southeast Asia very shortly, or maybe just a brief overview of what we have so far in Southeast Asia for rosters, just so we can kind of get a look at what teams are starting to look like. And so if we do that, maybe we'll get a little bit more in depth there. But regardless, pretty great looking roster there for Blacklist. I don't think there's any complaints, and we'll see how they end up doing. All right, next up for Fnatic, they have added Gabbi and kpii to their roster heading into this upcoming season. We'll see how that ends up going. These two, of course, getting picked up by Talon around this time last year as well. A lot of hype on that roster. Things didn't end up working out, but regardless, Gabbi has made his return, and kpii, of course, super reliable player, has been around the scene for a long time. Never gonna hurt to bring him on your team, so hopefully he's able to bring that level of consistency to this team that maybe they could use heading into this season, especially with these roster changes that might hold them back a little bit heading into this year. So best of luck to Fnatic. We'll see how things end up working out. Moving on now quickly over to Talon. They have picked up Sunbhie as their coach, which is a huge pickup, honestly. Sunbhie, fantastic coach, has been coaching in the scene for a very, very long time, has a pretty great track record, was with Fnatic for a very long time, was very surprised to see that he had left the team, but he has found himself a new home, still in Southeast Asia, but this time with a competitor of Fnatic this time around. So who knows, maybe Talon will now have the upper hand whenever they play Fnatic in their DPC seasons because Sunbhie will have that inside knowledge. Although the roster isn't exactly the same with Fnatic, I'm sure they do have a set play style that Sunbhie will be able to bring to Talon to take them down. So we'll see how that goes. I gotta say, I like this move a lot for Talon. I like this move a lot for Sunbhie. Fnatic kind of sucks that they lose them, but regardless, things like that happen. Sometimes people just want to move on. All right, now moving over to SMG before we quickly get over to a small thing in China. We have SMG who have parted ways with poloson. He was on the team, I don't think for very long. I think he was one of those players that had joined when they were going to try to qualify for TI. That didn't end up going through, and so now he has left. And I'm kind of confused with what SMG is going to be doing from here. I don't exactly know if they're going to be putting together a roster for this upcoming season. Seems like everyone seems to be leaving. We, of course, had kpii, Ice, and now Poloson, so we'll see what they end up doing. Again, a lot of time for them to throw together a roster, although now with a lot of these other teams starting to throw rosters together, starting to pick up some of those available players, the options start to get a little bit slim for SMG. And I wonder, I'm genuinely curious if the whole fiasco with SMG not registering in time for the TI-11 qualifiers, if that's a bit of a red flag for players that this organization might not be top tier enough, or might not be, you know, organized enough for them to want to sign. I'm genuinely curious about that. Not saying that that's the case, but regardless, yeah, that is your roster changes from SMG. So now quickly moving over to China before we get back into some more news with Southeast Asia that have happened more recently. Old 11 has parted ways with Xtreme. Pretty big news. He was a pretty huge part of their team. Of course, Old 11 had a fantastic season with IG 2 years ago. He unfortunately ended up, he was with IG. No, I'm thinking of JT. Either way, Old 11 was a great pickup for Xtreme over this past year. It's a damn shame that they end up losing him, but I do think that China should see a pretty big shakeup here and there. We still have PSG LGD that has 2 slots to fill as well, or sorry, 1 slot to fill as well, with Faith Beyond now being retired. So, you know, Old 11 could be that offlaner for PSG LGD. We also have Lou that has now been transferred to Ybb Gaming, which, if you guys aren't familiar, is the B team essentially for Xtreme Gaming. He has been transferred over there, and the new Ybb Gaming roster has actually now been filled out by bringing in Lou. They now have 7E and ZZQ as well to fill out the opening slots in their roster that they had after TI. Currently, no coach for Ybb Gaming, but that's where things are going to be left. And for Xtreme, they have 2 slots to fill. I'm very excited to see how they do that, because this is a team with a lot of talent, and I'm just curious to see what players end up coming, or if players end up going to this org at all. Again, just genuinely curious. All right, now let's get into our additional board here. As I mentioned, I had made this first board a few days ago, but I couldn't record because I was too ill. So I've added on some of the stuff that I had missed in my first one because they hadn't happened yet. So first little bit of news, and again from Southeast Asia, again, more rosters being finalized here, although we don't know if this is actually the final form of Boom Esports, but they have replaced Skem, Tims, and Jackie, who had previously left. That left them without a carry player and both of their supports, which is a pretty huge gap to fill. Again, especially with how well Boom was playing over this past year, it was kind of a shame that they weren't able to hold things together. But I understand they had some disappointing results, especially near the end of the year when it matters most. So evidently players end up leaving, but they bring in some pretty hefty players to fill those slots. And I think Boom should still at the very least be a top half team in the upper division in Southeast Asia with this roster. I think that's a pretty fair bet. They're bringing in Natsumi from Polaris to play position 1, who overall I think had a pretty fantastic year, had a great showing in the last chance qualifiers, that's for sure, but overall in Southeast Asia with Polaris, whether it was in tier 2 or in tier 1, I think Natsumi was one of the better carry players overall that just wasn't getting as much attention as some other carry players. Polaris was a really, really great team that just wasn't quite able to crack into the top half of Southeast Asia. We also have Zephyr coming in from T1, of course, since that team had dissolved, and X-Nova, of all people, coming into play with Boom as well, which I think is really, really interesting. So I'm very excited to see how this ends up going. I think this could go very, very well. I could also see this maybe being a bit of a step back for Boom, but again, when the bar is that high, it's understandable that there might be a bit of a drawback, but if it ultimately means that they will improve over time, that this roster will do better as the season goes on, then I think they'll all take that hands down. You want to be winning at the end of the season, not only at the start of it. And finally, last little bit of news here. This is one that is a little bit less lighthearted than what we were previously talking about, but is still something very, very important and something that I've been kind of annoyed with Valve for a very long time. And shocker, it's prize pool money and whatsoever. But this is actually not necessarily directly on Valve. This is actually on the third-party tournament organizer for the regional tours, in this case, South America, which, if you guys aren't aware, The TO that runs that is 4D Esports, and essentially they run the tournament, they pay out the players, that's how it works. And according to SG Esports, or at least the manager, who actually just dissolved their esports, excuse me, their esports part of their company, they're not going to be competing anymore. They actually still had to branch out and be like, hey, we haven't gotten paid yet. Our players are needing this money. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They still need to get paid. This is their livelihood. And still nothing yet. They had mentioned that they had written out to Valve, they had been patient, they had waited, they had done everything essentially that you would want. They didn't just come right after the money immediately. They gave them some time, then they wrote them some letters, and still nothing from either 4D Esports or Valve. So we'll see what Valve is able to do from this. Again, just kind of a shitty situation overall. The fact that not only is the prize pool so low already for these tours, but also we now have these third-party tournament organizers that just aren't paying them out. Just kind of a shame overall. So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'll be sure to let you guys know how this develops and everything else in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really means a lot to me that you guys click on my videos and check them out all the time, and you guys are super engaged in the comments and let me know what stuff is happening and all that. So it means a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys very shortly with another video. Bye.